Hello and welcome back to the ACSC podcast. Back for episode 2. Thanks for all the feedback on episode 1. I've got to say it's our most viewed video so far. So I think, Warren, thank you very much for coming on. You've done wonders after one episode. As noticed, you'll see it is just me and Warren again. Just also a message from Adil. He's not feeling the best at the moment. A bit of personal things going on. So he's taking a bit of time away for season 2 at the moment, but he will be back. He sends all his best and we send all the best to him and hope to see him back on the show soon. But we'll carry on for this week. And I think it's an interesting topic. We're going to talk about ex-players becoming managers. Obviously, there's 3 of them now. What you would say is originally some of the top 4 in United, Chelsea and Arsenal have all got ex-players that they're now as managers. So we'll start on United. Obviously, Ole Gunnar Solskjær, I think is a very hot topic. If you ask a lot of United fans what they think of him, they've not got good things to say. Some stats for you. He's managed United for 93 games in the Premier League, and these stats are only Premier League, not including Europa League, because if I put them in there, Arteta's record looks incredible. But just from the Premier League, 93 games as a manager, 43 wins, 22 draws and 28 losses. They scored 152 goals and conceded 127, and he's been manager of the month once. On paper, them stats are, I'll say, probably about even. But it's a bit hard to say. What was your opinion on him? Obviously, being a Liverpool fan, I know it's going to be a bit different.
Solskjaer, obviously, when he first came in, I thought, oh, brilliant. He's obviously not going to do well especially with the high task they always get for a manager for being at Man United.
Yeah.
It's kind of had its ups and downs with him, but at the moment, I hate to say it, but they seem to be grinding out games which are literally getting them up the table. And now, as you look at it, top of the table with us.
Exactly. I think it's an interesting one because, like you said there, United fans have such high expectations of their managers. And I think they've been sort of sucked into that from the glory days of Fergie. And I don't think anyone will be on that calibre of a manager they're going to get again. Obviously, I know they wanted Pochettino for a while, but obviously that is now confirmed he's gone to PSG. I think Solskjaer has brought the best out in a few players like Rashford, etc.
Oh, yeah, of course. It just seems, obviously, with his age and obviously with the amount of experience he's got in playing, he knows he's got that football in mind to be in touch with his players, of knowing what they're going through.
Yeah. And I think another interesting thing, I think it's not touched on, is he's obviously brought that harmony back to, and I think a lot of the staff also said it when he come in that caretaker manager period, when obviously they had the rough exit of Mourinho, is he brought that, I'll say, that spirit back up at the ground, that everyone sort of felt that atmosphere change instantly. And I think that's something that is so United needed. Is you look at them on the pitch now, see sometimes they don't have the best, but when they get going, obviously we spoke about Bruno Fernandes very highly last episode, is if they can get him as the captain, etc., and build around him, I think, like you said, they're going to be a force for the next 2-3 years again.
Yeah, especially because obviously, I think Bruno, what's he, 27, 28 now, I think?
Not, I would say he's not in, he's gone past his peak yet. He's coming into his peak years.
But it's, they've got that one dominant player that's performing each game.
Yeah.
It's what you want to build around.
Yeah. And it's an interesting one. I think we can bring it into Arsenal. We'll talk about Mikel a bit now. On the other hand, I sort of made sure I took them other stats because Mikel Arteta has only been a manager for 37 games in the Premier League, so he's not even done a full Premier League season yet. He's got 16 wins, 8 draws and 13 losses. We've scored 52 and we conceded 40. And I think it's sort of shown this year is a lot of that has come this year, them losses. When he was in the back end last season, we had a very good start, and I can't deny that. But it's sort of shown that fragile side that he's not as experienced as everyone first thought. No doubt, I think he is the right man to take us forward as a club, due to the fact that obviously he was under Pep Guardiola for so long. He knows how to get best out of players, and obviously we're now off 3 wins on the bounce. Who would have thought it? 3 games ago we were in a relegation battle. We're now 6 points off top. Not 10 points off top. It's this season, you can't call it. I don't know what your opinion is on Mikel from an outsider point of view. Obviously, I'm going to be a bit biased to him and that side of things, but it'll be interesting.
When he come from obviously Man City, being under Guardiola, obviously it's always going to be promising. Obviously the training, what he's been with him, but does it always come down to financial backing from Arsenal and what kind of faith they have in him? Because obviously Arsenal last obviously couple of games have done well, but is your bench good enough to as a second squad as such, not just full on youth?
Yeah, and obviously you look at the likes of you guys with your bench, you've got so much depth, etc. there, that your second team is probably arguably just as good as our first team at the moment. And then you take City involved, their third team could probably beat our first team on paper. And I think that's the thing. Also, I think we are making movements this January already. We've seen Saliba, who is a very highly rated centre-back, just hasn't hit the ground running. Arteta obviously wanting to have a transitional period. He's now gone on loan to Nice for the rest of this season. We're seeing Ozil potentially going. I think for us to make any dealings this window, we're going to have to see a lot of departures. Obviously, Kolasinac has now left. He's gone to Schalke. He's a player I did like. I did like Kolasinac. I think he was a very underrated left back when he actually played well for us. But it just didn't work.
He's kind of one of those just brutes. Not the most quickest or that, but defensively wise, if you're going one-on-one with him, he's just going to outstrength you.
And I think that's what it is. It just didn't work out. I liked him a lot when he was at Schalke, and I wish him all the best going back there. Obviously, I don't know if you've seen it, their record they're on. They're very close to breaking a Bundesliga record for the most games without a win. I think they're bottom of the Bundesliga. When a club like Schalke, it's shocking to see that. But for us to get somewhere, I think it'll be an interesting 6 months for us now to see where we go going forward. And obviously, Mikel, I think, is the right man to take us forward. And it was interesting sort of linking it into the next club we're going to talk about. If you go back 3 games ago when we played them, Chelsea, their fans were mocking us, etc., for such a bad season. And now they were meant to be title challengers. And they're now, obviously, I think we're 3 points behind them, I believe. And obviously, Frank Lampard's Chelsea. And I think Frank Lampard as a manager, he's been there for 2 seasons now. He's played 55 games, 27 wins, 11 draws, and 17 losses. 101 goals for, 75 against, and he also has a manager a month to his name. I think it's an interesting topic. We have spoke a little bit about it last episode. Is Frank one of these lucky managers who's avoided a lot of bad press because he's an English manager? But I think the last few days I have seen some articles coming out that his job's now under pressure. They're not performing, etc. And I think he is a bit unlucky with the likes of the signings. Obviously, Timo Werner injured himself kicking the corner flag the other night. If you haven't seen a clip of it, he goes to take a corner, kicks it, and he injures. So it sort of sums up his season this year. I think he's gone from being one of the most highly rated forwards in the world to a flop instantly.
They did say 50 million was a bargain for him.
I think, I don't know if you guys saw something that no one else saw, but you didn't take the gamble, and I think it's a wise decision at the moment. But I think for Frank Lampard, it's a bit unfortunate. I think he is a good manager. I personally think the Chelsea job was a step too soon for him when he went there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't. You look at the success he had at Derby. Did he have a lot of success?
Right, he was keeping them up there, weren't he? Challenging, but you wouldn't say he was on the verge of getting them to the Premiership.
And obviously, they lost. I think he was there when they lost the playoffs, didn't they, to Villa? I think obviously Chelsea is one of them clubs, and I think it's very much like Arsenal. I wouldn't touch it with my life if I was a starting out manager, because Arsenal don't give you the backing, and obviously Arteta's took a big risk in that jump going there. And obviously, Chelsea are notorious for sacking managers like fun. And that's the big situation. If do Chelsea take the gamble and sack Lampard now, who do they bring in?
I honestly don't know on that one, to be honest. Unless they went for someone like Tuchel, obviously with him just departing, obviously PSG, which you'd probably call a top manager. But otherwise, I can't see. There's not much about at the moment.
No, obviously, I think Pochettino was the big manager around, obviously now gone to PSG, which is going to be a very interesting one to keep an eye on, because if he can manage to keep Neymar, Mbappe, etc., there, they could be finally that team to force reckon in Europe. But it's obviously this conversation is becoming a massive trend where these ex-big players are now becoming managers, and I think the other one we haven't really talked about is Gerrard. Obviously, the success he's having this year with Rangers. I think they haven't lost a game in the the Scottish Premiership. I don't know if they've lost in Europe, but they're obviously unbeaten. And
I think they might have lost to Braga, but they did win. I think they won the group.
Yes, they are absolutely flying. And I think this is a lot of stepping stone he took right. He went to a club like Rangers, who obviously are a massive club, respectively, in Scotland, but he hasn't got that, I'll say, that pressure of the English media on him every way. He's stepped away from that, building his reputation up, took Rangers from obviously being in Celtic's shadow again for so long to, I think they're 19 points clear after their 1-0 winner against them at the weekend. They're arguably going to win the SPL this year. Could do stuff in Europe and Europa League. That could be an interesting dynamic. Where would his next move potentially be? To you guys, potentially?
I think Klopp's until 23. I think his contract ends, and like you said, if he don't feel it's right, he will go and obviously have a year off. Yeah. So probably say Gerrard after that. Which I think he's done it perfectly for Gerrard. Obviously, he hasn't gone in full whack into a Premier League, as is like John Terry as well, going to Villa as an assistant.
He is, and obviously then you've got the likes of Wayne Rooney, who's gone to Derby. I think Derby is now basically the manager full time.
It's obviously he hasn't jumped at the deep end, waiting for someone just to shoot him down straight away, because the results ain't been going their way.
Yeah. And I think it's a massive praise on Gerrard's behalf. And it'll be interesting to see this done. Like, we obviously got Rooney coming up. Is all these ex-players that we've seen as idols of the Premier League come in potentially in this. And it's a new era of it. And it makes an interesting dynamic, because personally for me, you look at, would United fans want one day Rooney to become their manager? Because for me, it's the argument I've always had with the likes of Henry talking about becoming Arsenal manager. Personally, I would never want to see it, because if it doesn't work, it will tarnish that legacy he's built.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And obviously, Henry as a manager hasn't had the best success in his career. Obviously, I think he's now gone back to the MLS. I think he's a manager out there. It's the likes of Patrick Vieira as well, had success at Nice for a while. He got sacked this season. And this is the argument, is it's not always the right career move for players to go into management.
It's completely different from playing football to managing football. Yeah. Two different things.
And I think a prime example we can see is Gary Neville tried it. He took over at Valencia, which was one of the bizarrest things I've ever seen. And it absolutely failed. And he's openly admitted it in some interviews you've seen. I think he's come out and said he will never become a manager again, because it didn't work for him. He couldn't do it. He's arguably probably the best pundit we've got in, I'll say, English football at least, that he knows what he's good at. And his dynamic he has with Carragher as well, and that side of things. That's two there that know where they're going. And I think you got the likes of Ronaldo said he doesn't know what he wants to do, etc. You can be like Ronaldo, the best player in the world, but what would he be like as a manager?
It's a bit of a hard one for him, because what it's like, even his documentary, how much sacrifice he makes to be, as he has to be, trying to be one of the best, if not the best player there's ever been.
Yeah.
And I did see one the other day. I think it was for an award show or talk show. Ronaldo, they were talking about Ronaldo's son.
Yeah.
And he was saying how much his son, he wants to dedicate that work to it. He was getting annoyed because his son was having a bar of chocolate or
a can of Coke and that. Yeah.
10 years old. He just said the only way you're going to get success is if you put 100% into it and sacrifice what you need to get to the top.
And I think that will clash with a lot of players he would manage, because I don't think there will be any player that is very close to his level of dedication. The only two is that obviously Messi is probably not as in the highlight of what he does out there, but I can guarantee he puts just as much dedication as Ronaldo does.
Yeah.
But for them to, I think it'll be very hard to go into management because I don't think they'll get the players who would be willing to do that. It's one of them things. Some players are very good at training, some are not. There's so many factors that come into it, but I just can't see certain players like that doing very well.
Could it be money wise as well? They ain't gonna need it, are they?
No, and I think Ronaldo's been very open. He obviously has a lot of properties. He does real estate. He says he doesn't know if he has a career left in football after he's finished.
I think he was saying he maybe wanted to go into film or that afterwards.
I think the door is open for him to do whatever he wants. He's built that legacy now. He's not just a footballer. He's a superstar in everything else. And I think it goes the same for Messi. And it's an interesting time. But I think, like we said about them three, in 5 years' time, out of the three we discussed in Ole Gunnar Solskjær, Mikel and Frank, do you think any of them will still be at their respective clubs they are now?
Probably not.
No? None?
No.
I don't know. Ole Gunnar Solskjær, I don't see it. I think if they carry on the way they're going, if they end up winning a title in the next year or two, that's only going to put more pressure on him due to the fact that
if he wins one, they're going to want them to be challenging again.
Exactly. Mikel Arteta, I don't know. I personally think he'll move on to bigger things. I think he's a Man City manager ruling all over him. As soon as Pep's done, I think they'll come back for him because they have a lot of respect for him still. What he's done there, I can see that happening. And Frank, I think, will be a potential England manager one day.
Yeah, I can see that.
Obviously, he's got a great England international legend behind him. I just can't see him lasting at Chelsea much. I don't even think he'll manage this season if he carries on the way he's going because of the amount of money they spent in the summer.
It's one of those things. It must be heartbreaking when you're trying to do your best. And obviously, like a club like Chelsea, especially for Lampard, where he made his career as such, it must feel horrible for when results ain't going your way, and you're looking at obviously going to be looking above. When are they going to put the finger down and say that's it?
And I think more than anything, he'll know it's coming. Obviously, being a player in there all that time, he would have seen the amount of managers. God knows how many managers that he's been through in his time as a player there. It's like you're saying, you always got that board knocking above you. And I think for Arteta, I think I did see an article the other day that Arsene Wenger come out and said that he would happily come back and help Arsenal. I think seeing things like that probably doesn't help in his situation because he's trying to steer the club in a different direction. And he doesn't need things like that coming out. But there's so much being said, and I think really we've covered a lot of that side of things. But it'll be good for you guys also. If there's anything you want to hear us discuss, we're more than happy to hear your thoughts, etc. Go follow our socials. Twitter, I think Warren is trying to get it going a bit. It's lacking behind the Instagram followers side of things. It'd be good to get a bit. It'd be good to get going. So obviously, I'll put below our Instagram, our Twitter, and our Facebook pages. Hit us up on there. Obviously, this episode goes live on Spotify, iTunes, and YouTube. But I think a lot of you enjoy watching on the YouTube because it's obviously video based now. If there's anything you'd like to see, I'll say FIFA content wise, it'll be quite interesting. I know Warren's a big FIFA player like me. If you want to see some things on there, it'll be rather interesting. Pack luck wise, we could do some pack openings. It'd be quite funny to see the difference this year.
If not, ask Charlie how his last result was against me.
Yeah, interesting. But obviously, yeah, anything like that, we're happy to do it. It switches it up a bit, makes it a bit more interesting, brings different to the channel. But like we said, Adil will be back soon. We're wishing him all the best. Potentially may have a few guests coming on. I think Tom is happy to come back on. He was on last season. Now a manager for, I can't remember the club he's managing now, but he's gone into management as well. So it'd be good to have him back on the show. But for this week, thank you very much. And we'll see you guys next week.
Ta-da.